American Top 40.
This week on AT40, there are 15 foreign acts in the countdown. 10 of them are English. And here's one of those English acts. At number 35, second week on the chart, Genesis. Their first top 40 hit is Follow You, Follow Me. Genesis at number 35, moving up 2 with Follow You, Follow Me.
American Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. 5 years ago, when Peter Gabriel, the flamboyant lead singer of the English group Genesis, left for a solo career, most critics figured that was the end for Genesis. But drummer Phil Collins decided he'd try singing lead, and the group's popularity hasn't wavered at all. At number 15, here's Genesis with Misunderstanding. Genesis on American Top 40, moving up a couple of notches, 8th week on the chart, now at number 15 with Misunderstanding.
Coast to coast.
In 1972, the English band Genesis, who had never appeared or sold any records in the U.S., got a chance to test their appeal to American audiences and music critics. Their record company booked them to perform at a big charity show at New York's famous Philharmonic Hall in Lincoln Center. Well, Genesis landed in New York the morning of the concert, planning to spend the day rehearsing to get everything down just perfect. But the hall had already been booked for the entire day for a rehearsal by Leonard Bernstein and the Philharmonic Orchestra, and Genesis didn't have time even for a sound check. Keyboard player Tony Banks said, "The whole gig was a complete nightmare. We had this incredible hum all the way through, and something was wrong with the bass. My organ was made to work on the British power system, and I couldn't get full power out of it. Plus, a couple of us had the flu." When it was over, Genesis knew they had blown their chance for an American tour, and they told their manager, book them on the next flight back to London. But the reviews in the morning papers told a whole different story. For a performance that they thought had gone down the tubes, Genesis got incredible raves from the critics. And several months later, they launched their first smash tour of the U.S. Their current hit at number 14 this week may have been titled as a remembrance of their first visit, Misunderstanding. At number 14 in the countdown of the 40 most popular records in the USA, it's Genesis and Misunderstanding.
Coast to coast.
Radio plays them, record stores sell them, Billboard ranks them, and American Top 40 counts them down. Back in 1974, we had a wild chart occurrence. This week, we've got something similar, but it goes one step further. You see, in 1974, after the Beatles broke up, John, Paul, George, and Ringo were all in the top 40 at the same time on 4 different records. Neat trick. But now another English band tops that in a way. This week we have 4 members of the group Genesis in the countdown. That is 2 former members, Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett, and 2 current members, Phil Collins and Mike Rutherford. Peter Gabriel is in with his solo hit, Sledgehammer. Steve Hackett is now a member of the new band GTR in the countdown with When the Heart Rules the Mind. Phil Collins is in the survey with a solo hit, Take Me Home. And Mike Rutherford leads Mike and the Mechanics in the song All I Need Is a Miracle. That's 4 current or former members of Genesis now in the countdown on 4 different records. And look who debuts this week. The band itself. Genesis debuts at number 37 with a new hit, Invisible Touch. Invisible Touch by Genesis. Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks. They debut at number 37 on American Top 40 with their 8th Top 40 hit. As the countdown continues.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Now on American Top 40, we're up to the current hit by Genesis, whose lead singer Phil Collins once learned that you really can't fool Mother Nature. It's a story about his early showbiz career. When Phil was in his early teens, he auditioned for the London stage production of the very successful musical Oliver, and he landed the role as the Artful Dodger. A terrific break, followed by a terrific panic. Just a few weeks after 14-year-old Phil got the part, his voice began to change. It would go high and then low and crack at all the wrong times. Puberty was upon him. And Phil says, I was so embarrassed I was suddenly singing songs that were too high for me. I used to eat cough drops before I went on to try to make my voice smooth. But no matter what he tried, Phil Collins couldn't halt the natural changes that came from his bodily hormones. He lost his boyish soprano and his job in the show. That was over 20 years ago. This week, a fully matured 36-year-old Phil Collins is in our survey with his band Genesis. At number 11, here's a song that kind of describes the way Phil must have felt back then as a young teen. Land of Confusion. The British band Genesis is still climbing with that hit, Land of Confusion. They're up a notch to number 11 this week. And the countdown continues on American Top 40.
The hits from coast to coast.
American Top 40 is heard in the 50 states and around the world every week on great radio stations like Z93, WZGC, Atlanta, Georgia. Playing more favorites, Q102, Des Moines, Iowa. The hit music station, 99 KG, Salina, Kansas. And 96 FM, KEZY, Anaheim, California. The current hit by Genesis peaked at number 4 last week. Now it drops down to 6. Here's Land of Confusion. The band who began more than 20 years ago in an English boys' school called the Charter House. Genesis at number 6 this week with Land of Confusion. American Top 40's coming to you from Hollywood. I'm Casey Kasem.
American Top 40.
Now we're up to an English group who've achieved a lot more than they intended to. The original members got together in Surrey back in 1966 to write songs for other people. But a few months later, they found themselves recording their first album. Their current album is their 16th, and this is their 11th Top 40 hit. Here is Genesis with Tonight, 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 up a notch to number 3.
I'm coming down like a monkey.
Tonight, Tonight, Tonight. That's Genesis up a notch to number 3 with their 4th Top 40 hit from the album, Invisible Touch.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
I'm Shadoe Stevens, AT40. 20 years. In fact, more than 20 years. These days, most marriages don't last that long, but that's how long the band at number 11 have been making music together. And actually, Genesis guitarist and bassist Mike Rutherford and keyboardist Tony Banks have known each other since they formed the group back in 1966. Phil Collins only joined the band around 1971. And when we recently had them all together, we asked what they thought of each other as musicians and as people. So sit back. This is fun. First, Phil on Mike.
Well, I'm talking about Mike here. Mike, well, he's very original guitar player. I mean, I think there are better musicians than all of us floating about. That's never been that important to us, to be honest, because the songs we're playing is more important than how fast we play or how good we play it. So I think in that respect, Mike, will come up with very un-guitar-like ideas, and it's the originality of the thing, and that's really an important side of Genesis.
And next, we asked Mike about Tony.
As a person, since I've known him, he's relaxed. He used to be not so relaxed. He really has. I mean, he's got more relaxed. As a musician, I think what he brings to Genesis is very important. He just plays an awful lot of chords different to anybody else. And also the thing about Tony is he doesn't know when he's playing them. He sits there and he bangs out these chords, and you can see Phil and I kind of going, whoa, stop, that's great. It's just an original way of playing sort of chords and melodies that I think are a big part of Genesis.
Isn't that great? And finally, Tony talked about Phil.
Phil was fabulous. Certainly on this record, I think one of the things was the ability, we're talking about this improvising kind of lines, to give a kind of starting point for a song. Now, the thing is, it's very easy when I'm improvising lines. I tend to find myself singing things like, "She's my baby, I love her so," which doesn't get you very far, actually. But with Phil, he's very good at improvising kind of original sort of lines, things like "No Son of Mine" suggests something which has got a special quality about it, I think. And in terms of personality, the most obvious change with Phil over the years has been increasing self-confidence, I think.
Well, the key to my survival was never in much doubt.
Genesis is up 1 to number 11 with No Son of Mine.
American Top 40.